Alpine Touch has been a staple of Montana for nearly 8 decades. Folks around the Treasure State have been putting Alpine Touch's world-famous all-purpose seasoning on their steaks and burgers for longer than most of us have been alive. The holidays are coming up. If you want to knock everyone's socks off, be sure to pick up some Alpine Touch Cold Smoke Rub for the best flavor for your Thanksgiving turkey or your Christmas prime rib. Alpine Touch comes in the mail right to your door. Just visit alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Well, thrilled to be here on December 16th. The semester's over. We've had commencement. We're still playing football. So that's a good sign. We're one of 4 teams. Really excited about the opportunity that's in front of us. I think looking back to Friday night, felt we certainly did what we had to do. It wasn't super easy right from the start. There was certainly some give and take. But, I think we took advantage of the opportunities that presented themselves, particular in that second and third quarter, and just really proud of the guys for that. A lot of teams, you get that 10-10 situation, I think would be, maybe panic would settle in or whatever, but, this team is not built that way. And you make a lot about the onside kick and the fumble and those type of things, but we had to take advantage of those opportunities ultimately to be 7 of 7 touchdowns in the red zone was critical. Our third down versus their third down. I think at one point it was 11 out of 13 versus 0 out of 8. I know it didn't quite finish that way, but significant stats that we always look at, and just felt like our guys, made the most of that night, and certainly within that game, made the most of the opportunities that presented themselves. So. It was a physical game. You come off 2 physical games in a short week. It was good to have the extra day. Obviously, got a chance to see South Dakota and Davis play on Saturday and how that unfolded. And then, got to work on South Dakota. I think South Dakota is a really good football team. You come out of that league and you're a tri-champion, I guess. They all beat each other once the way that played out. And that's a huge credit to them to become a piece of that, or to get a piece of that. And Coach Nielsen is a longtime head coach who's had a lot of success for the course of his career, and he's built this over the last 9 years into a program that's that's right there with the 2 schools that have really dominated our division over the last decade plus. So credit goes to him for continuing to build it in such a fashion. You look at their team, I think they're a very good team, meaning they don't have to lean on offense or defense. I think they're good on both sides of the ball offensively, really balanced, right around 220 a game, both rushing and passing, 2,000-yard rushers, and 2 different styles of backs between Pierre and Tice. In Bauman's and very efficient as a passer, and he's got a lot of guys to throw to at the same time. Really good receiving crew, a good tight end in Galbraith that they brought back this last week. They throw to their backs, so really balanced offense, and one that we'll certainly have our hands full defending. Then on defense, they've been really good at stopping the run, just over 100 yards a game on the ground, and then they can get after the passer led by Grace, who's got, I think, about 19 TFLs and just about 10 sacks. I think was the defensive player of the year in the Missouri Valley. So, and they play a bunch of guys, really good linebacking crew, good safeties. They fly to the ball. They make it really hard to do what you want to do. And they've, you look at those 2 games, the South Dakota State, the North Dakota State games, very low scoring, competitive games that, defense won the day, I think, in those 2 games. And, they're certainly right there in those games, one at the line of scrimmage. And that's where it starts for them, I think, on both sides of the football. Very good offensive line, and then a defensive line that could certainly hold its own. So we'll have our hands full. We look forward to it, though, an opportunity to play one more game here to close out home season, 9 home games. I don't think it's ever been done before. So excited for the 9th, and the most exciting and the most impactful crowd that Bobcat Stadium has seen this year. I know we'll need that. Unfamiliar territory for South Dakota, so we want to make them feel our crowd throughout. And our crowd had a big impact on Friday night and has throughout the season, and obviously we will need that come Saturday. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
Any update on Scotch or Rowan?
Yeah, everybody has a chance this week. That's why we put the depth chart the way we did. I think they were both game time decisions on Friday night. And who knows, maybe a Saturday game maybe gives one or both of them a chance. So I think early in the week, like where they're both at, and the chance that they'll have this weekend. With that being said, really didn't sustain anything new. So it's really the holdovers, those 2 guys in particular, that we're looking to get back and be as strong as we've been, at any point in time here in November, December.
South Dakota showed multiple fronts in that game on Saturday, but do they like to do that, or do they kind of stick to one?
Well, I think they're a 4-down by nature team. They do stand Grace up at the outside linebacker. I know they refer to him as a linebacker, rush linebacker, but he's a defensive end in all intents terms, I guess. So, yeah, they have the ability to mix it up. I think they are good because they know what they want to do and they do it really well. They don't try to do a ton of things. They're good in coverage. Their safeties really fly to the football. So been really impressed with their defense, and having gone back, I watched the night they played South Dakota State. Was really impressed that night, and knew that if we had a chance to play them down the road, it would be, one of the better defenses we certainly would see.
What impressed you most about that South Dakota State performance?
Well, they made it really hard on South Dakota State that night. And as it got into the later part of the game, I mean, they were ultimately felt like they were in control. It didn't work out for them. It goes to overtime. But, I think to go to Brookings and be able to play them that way, I think that in itself was impressive. So, it was apparent that you could see that they were prepared to go toe to toe with South Dakota State, and then a bunch of weeks later, NDSU has to go down there, and that was an unusual game, unusual finish, but they found a way to win. So when you can put yourself in the conversation with those 2 programs, you've taken things to a pretty high level.
Speaking of finding a way to win, South Dakota, their last few games, they've had to find several different ways to win. I guess, what does that say about their team holistically? Yeah, I think they're a team that plays complementary football for sure. I know they've really benefited from the takeaways the last 2 games. Getting 6 against Davis, that's almost unheard of. So, and you could hear it in the post game. There was no worry they're going to pick each other up, because I know they turned it over 3 times offensively as well in this past game. So I think there is a sense of confidence. Games, I'm sure, like the NDSU game, last regular season game of the season, where they found a way, it seemed seemingly against all odds to pull that one out. You build out of that type of game. And then, you get in the playoffs, and it really, that sense of belief can really catch on like wildfire. So I think that's definitely where they're at. They're also good in special teams as well. So, they have a team that, much like us, you want to be good on both sides of the ball. You want to be impactful in the special teams, and that plays this time of year. So there's a good reason that they're still alive. Mentioned Bauman earlier, just the efficiency or consistency. I guess what stands out about him as a passer?
Yeah, I've known Aiden for a long time. Recruited a tight end out of his high school the year before when Aiden was a junior. And Aiden's dad, Todd, was the coach. And so I had watched him a lot as a high school player, and he committed to Iowa State at that time. So, really talented, big athlete. Was what he looked like as a high schooler. And this is the first time I've really had a chance to watch him intently as a college player. But, really strong arm. He's got great size. He's got a quick release. Son of a coach, and his dad, Todd, was an NFL player as well. So, he's got a really good football mind, it appears. commands their offense, makes good decisions. So, he's definitely the one that drives it for him offensively. He's got a lot of weapons around him, but without him playing to the level he is, they wouldn't be having the success they are.
You mentioned around the time of senior day that the senior class knew, they'd have a few more games at home. Now with this being the final game at home and how special the senior class is, how do you kind of handle those emotions going into this one? Does it seem like they're pretty good at handling their emotions, but
Yeah,
what was in store this weekend?
I don't know. I think ultimately what they've done now is they've maxed out what it could be, as far as the home games go. But more importantly, there's another game on the other side of this that they all desire way more than anything else. So, they've done a really good job of making the most of every moment, meaning we're going to prepare like we can so that the moment works out in our favor. I think that's what I really think this group has going for us. They going for us. They don't. I think they know the gravity of the situation for sure, but they don't let that weigh them down. They've been able to lead our team in a fashion because of how they go about their business each week. Those bunch of seniors are, so critical to our success, but the way it plays out on a Friday night or all these Saturdays is one thing. It's what they're doing, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, to prepare and to show the other guys how it's done. So I think there's a lot of gratitude in maximizing, the home opportunities this year. And, I'm sure, there'll be some emotions knowing that this will be the last game here. But I know, it's more about creating a couple more weeks to this season, a couple more weeks to this team, and ultimately reaching that last game that they're going to be after.
Speaking of that, Brody specifically, and I spoke about it plenty of times before, but final home game for him, how do you kind of put into words what he's meant just to this program?
Yeah, I think there's a number of those guys. You look at I think for those guys, they would say, hey, we wanted to leave the place better than we found it. And there's no question they've done that. And, I think there's a bunch of guys that have raised the bar at their position. I think Brody certainly has done that. I think a bunch of guys that have raised the bar on what it means to be a student athlete here at Montana State. And I think Brody definitely exemplifies that. And, a group of guys that I think don't take anything for granted. They don't take any of these games for granted. They don't take their education for granted. They don't take what it means to be a Bobcat for granted. And there's, it's not just Brody carrying that flag. It's a bunch of them. So I think that's the really neat part about this group is that feeling of not taking opportunities for granted, whether it is on the football field, in school, in life, I think is really permeated this team, and we're far from perfect in that regard. But it's leaders like Brody that his legacy will be felt for a long, long time. He'll go down as one of the greats, I think, in this program. I have no doubt in my mind in saying that. So excited for him and this group to have maximized their opportunities here this fall, and excited for them to figure out how we can keep this thing going.
Tommy, you talk a lot about his improved passing. Was there anything specific that you saw him work on over the off season, or just that he's really kind of mastered this year?
I don't know that like anything special fundamentally or anything like that. I think we did make some adjustments in what we were doing. I think we added a much more thorough quick game package, I guess, to create more ordinary quarterback throws. It's not that we didn't have it, some elements of that in our passing game the past few years, but we really made a concerted effort there. I think that the area I think he's improved the most is down the field passing. That was, and I'm talking posts and things like that. Just stuff we didn't do a lot with him the last couple of years. If we were going to do much of that, it was probably with Chambers. So that's probably, from a physical perspective, the one thing that he's improved. And I think the game has just continued to slow down for him in the passing game, meaning, okay, he's going to actually take the time to, maybe go through a couple reads. His ability to, be dialed in pre-snap, I think is to a point this year where, he's making, the decisions before the stuff's even happening, before the movement's even happening. And while he is still scrambling and is an effective scrambler, it's not necessarily this instinct, I guess. So there's some training his own mind, I suppose, that has gone into that. I know Coach Walker's work with him, I think, has been very productive through the time that he's been with them. I think even Coach Keaton, Chucky had an impact on him going back to the winter. So he was on this track. It's just, I think it's all come together, and it's probably some physical, but it's more just, it's a combination of what we're doing and it really fitting him this year, and him taking his game and his confidence to, I think really to an elite level right now.
And obviously 3 years ago, he had that really good semifinal performance here. Guys like Justice, Ryland, Brody were playing big roles on that team. So how much have you thought back to those guys' performance and just that game overall, the last semifinal game you had here?
Yeah, it was a special day for this program, and it is good that we do have some guys that were a big piece of that game. I look at this group now has played in 10 playoff games, right? I think that would be the number, and so they've been into some different situations, both here in Bobcat Stadium and on the road. I think they understand what playoff football is all about, meaning you've got to go out there and play your very best against a team that's capable of doing the same thing. Know that the other team is going to be able to make plays. Know that if we're at home, what does that mean? It doesn't guarantee us a win or anything like that, but we better be able to, I guess, feed the crowd. We better be able to do things that gets the crowd into the game. So I think, our playoff experience in general is what you think about. And there's definitely some good through those 10 games. But there's some lows too. We're 7-3 in those games. And, I think that's what you try. Okay, what do you need to do to play your very best this time of year when you absolutely need to? And it's comforting as a coach to know you got a group of guys that have, the core of our team has been involved in so many big games. And, we'll need them to come through come Saturday.
Going down to Vegas with Brody and everybody for the Campbell presentation, just any takeaways from that experience?
Well, it's an amazing event, and it is, I suppose Heisman night with that one award becomes the pinnacle of from the outside looking in, but the college football Hall of Fame banquet, honoring, all those Hall of Fame inductees, and then, honoring the 16 National Football Foundation scholar athletes. It's a heck of a night, and it is, in some ways it's who's who of college football that congregate in Vegas. It's an award ceremony that's been going on for a long time. It's only been in Vegas most recently, but I think to have Montana State represented there now 3 out of 4 years between Troy, Bill Kohler, and now Brody. I think that speaks to our program, but it really, it speaks to those 3 individuals for their performance, and in Brody's case, on and off the field, to be able to put Montana State on that stage with, all the best programs across the country. So, it made for a busy day that day, practicing, flying down there and flying back after the banquet, but I know it was well worth it for Brody, and I think it was family to be there, and just thankful we were able to make it all happen.
So working on Sorrent Justice, and just, I know this season hasn't gone as you all planned for him, but just, I guess, what have you seen out of him this year, and just what he's meant at this point?
Yeah, I think pretty quickly back in August, he didn't let it bring him down, and a guy that, especially offensive lineman, when you're one of, I think we have 18 in that position group. If you're a guy that's going to wear your ups and downs on your sleeve, it's going to have a wide ranging effect within that group in particular. So I think his positivity from a pretty early stage post injury, I think was significant for that room. You know, I think he was able to look and say, I don't know why this happened here, but boy, I had 3 years of starting every game and not missing a snap basically in front of it. So, you know, why did it happen? I can't worry about that. I'm going to do everything I can to put myself back in position to be a part of this. And he's done that. I know coming back and playing offensive line is challenging in its own right. His injury has made it a little bit more challenging to come back. He's come back and he's played now in the last 3 games in some fashion. I know he's ready to go if we do need him. So I think I've just appreciated his attitude, his mindset, how he's carried himself through a pretty difficult time. I know he was on track to, you know, break starts records and be an all conference, all American type of guy. And again, you don't know why it happened. So I think he really appreciates what was in front of the injury, and he's making the most of what he can do to impact this team, you know, throughout the rest of his time here.
I've been in Five Valleys going on 6 years now. So my title is mitigation foreman. It usually entails going from house to house, talking to clients, and kind of overseeing many of the mitigation jobs. So we're dealing with a wide range of restoration situations, from fire to water to mold. We deal with trauma situations. We do carpet cleaning services.
So will you marry me in your future? Or maybe you do it all over again. Hi, I'm Brian Toon with Jewelry Design Center, inviting you to come see the largest selection of Will You Marry Me in the state of Montana. The brightest diamonds of every shape and size, unique settings built to last, and skilled jewelers on site offering free sizing and maintenance for life, because that's how long we want to be your jeweler. Jewelry Design Center in Missoula, on Brooks, across from the Montana Club.
We just
Can you maybe speak about Bobby Daly's role and kind of what he means to this team, being kind of a legacy player and a guy who's been around the program as long as he has been?
Yeah, I think when I got here in 21, you know, Bobby had just coached the one season in 19, but had been a part of the program or been back to the program for a couple of years. And it was really easy to see that this place meant so very much to him. Obviously, he had played here. His brother Brad had, his dad Jay had. So, you know, the roots ran real deep. And, you know, Bobby being a walk-on and becoming an All-American, you know, that's a pretty significant story into itself. But I think now coming back and, you know, becoming a coach, you withstand a coaching change, I guess. We changed systems. You know, I felt like Bobby really adapted well that first year into a new system. You know, you look at the success of our linebackers through the last 3, now 4 years. We've had all conference, all American level linebacker play, and that goes, you know, like credit goes to those players, but certainly a bunch of credit goes to Bobby. You know, quickly after I got the job, he transitioned into being the lead Montana recruiter, and you know, it goes without saying, I think we've done a really good job in the state recruiting, and a lot of credit goes to his efforts. You know, I think the high school coaches really, they know Bobby and they trust him, and the way he communicates with them is a big part of our success in state. And now becoming a coordinator in year 4, you know, he's taken our defense to another level. And there's a bunch of components to that. It's bringing that staff along in the off season, going back, you know, to the winter months, making some subtle tweaks to all that we were doing. You know, you're working with a group, you know, a bunch of those guys he'd worked with, and Jody he played with. So, you know, you go from being, I guess, on the same line as some of those guys to now you're the coordinator, you're the voice in that room. That's not always easy, but he's done a really good job of leading them, but also listening to them at the same time. And I think our players, you know, it was easy for them to gravitate to Bobby being in that new role going back to the winter, but you know, he's got to also then execute those relationships with the players beyond, you know, the linebacker room. So I think he did a really good job going back to the winter and the spring with that. And then, you know, as we've gotten into games, you know, as a first time play caller, I think, you what I see is we're very prepared each week. Our guys know what they're doing. I think we change our plan up enough each week to present some challenges for the other offense. But then in games, I think he's been really forward thinking, meaning we're not going to make every play. Good example on Friday night, we give up the long pass and it happened. Okay, now what do we got to do to move on? Or even in some sequences where we might give up a long run or something, it's always moving forward. And that positivity, I think our guys have really fed off of that. So he means a lot to this program. This program means a lot to him. This coming from Helena over to MSU, his story means a lot to him, and he's able to articulate that very well. So, our success. Bobby's certainly a big part of that this fall, and he's been a big part of our success over a long, long time with this program.
There was just a Penn State backup quarterback who entered the portal despite being in the playoff. There's a lot of coaches have talked about kind of different philosophies with trying to handle that at this point of the year. I was just kind of curious if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I do. The portal opened the 9th, and our season was done 2 weeks. Our regular season was done 2 weeks before that. So fair to say we've had ongoing conversations about just trying to get out in front of, this complicated time. There's 2 weeks here where guys can go on visits. Then there's 2 weeks where they won't be able to, and then schools are starting and there's some time on the other side. But, let's be transparent. Ultimately, as a coach, I want what's best for our guys. And there might be a scenario here or there that, the opportunity beyond Montana State might be best for them. And there might be situations where guys' role on our team isn't exactly what they're looking for. So they might be after something a little bit differently. So let's have an open conversation about what that means. I do think each situation is its own, and should be handled as such. I think as a head coach, you'd be making a great mistake to say this is the hard line that we are just working off of, because this time is not ideal. So it's lived in the FCS world for a little while. It's a little bit of a new world for more FBS teams this year. Is it right? I don't think so. But the calendar is dictated by our academic calendars, not our football seasons. So it is what it is. We got to live in it. And, ultimately, I want our guys that are part of the 24 team to be part of the 24 team as long as they can. If that means they're not going to be part of the 25 team and we get to that point, that's the way it goes. But, it's a pretty messy time, I guess, at the very least. I don't understand exactly, the Penn State situation, other than they maybe drew a hard line, I guess. Because I know there's some of those playoff teams have guys in the portal that are still, contributing, and I don't know. But you live and you learn, I guess, is what you're trying to do, and being out front of it this year, I think, has served us a lot better than it did last year, when we really didn't have those conversations. Then our season's done, and then what happened. So.
Coulter, do you have anything?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute. Can you hear me okay?
Gotcha, yeah.
A couple of follow-ups on what you were just talking about. One thing in terms of quarterback development, Tommy's now in year 4, but you see that across the playoffs. I think all 4 of the teams left have guys that are 3 or 4 year starters. What do you like about that? Getting a guy multiple years of experience, and how much can that make his last season sort of a peak like Tommy is reaching right now?
Well, there's a huge investment put into that position. And if you're always turning it over, that's challenging, because each quarterback is a little bit different. And you want to cater your offense towards the quarterback more than any other position. And to say that 2 guys are exactly the same, I don't think is ever the case, even if you have a couple guys battling it out. So I think there's that lean with your offense first of all. So if you can have that lean like we have, really for the better part of 3+ years now, you can continue to develop within that and evolve within that. And then, it goes without saying. I mean, the reps that Tommy's accumulated over time, they all add up, and the experience is, different than any other position. A game is the true tell. A lot of guys can go out there and sling it around in 7-on-7. They can be protected we wear gold jerseys at practice and make it look like football. But when you're out there and the bullets are flying and those guys in the other jerseys can tackle you, it's a whole different world. So game experience, I think at that position is so much different than any other position. And it accumulates the better. And I do think especially if you can lean into a guy and continue to see him grow, what he can become at the end of it is something pretty special. It doesn't mean you can't win with a 1-year starter. It doesn't mean that at all, but it's certainly more challenging, and your offense takes, I think, on a little bit different form if you're living in a one-year mode.
Because 6 of the last 8 teams this year were teams with multiple year starters, and then you also have Idaho with Jack Lane as a sophomore. Do you think it's kind of a blueprint or like an indicator for teams moving forward that maybe going and getting a fancy Power 5 quarterback isn't the way to do it in the FCS?
Well, I think that's true. I think sometimes you don't always have that good fortune to say, okay, Tommy Mlott's leaving. We have it all figured out beyond him, I guess. You'd absolutely want to develop from within. You'd want to, if you are going to take on a transfer, you maybe want to take it on a transfer with some years. No matter what, though, whether it's a guy that's coming up through your system or a guy you bring in, they got to fit. And they got to fit when the time is right for the time is up for them, when it's their turn, I guess. So yeah, I don't know that it can't work either way necessarily. But that position is the most difficult to play in sports. It's the most important position on a football team. Rarely at any level do you win without good quarterback play. So we're all after that, and how that person fits within your team and how impactful he can be in the off season is significant too. I think that's the stuff that doesn't go seen a lot. So I think it's a predictor for success. It's not the absolute, meaning a guy that grows within your system, but I think we're really fortunate. We're reaping the benefits of a guy that's, he's done just that. He's developed. He's become something different. He is playing at an elite level right now, and for us to be in this position, we wouldn't be here without the way Tommy's played.
In terms of just the rise of South Dakota as a football program, do you feel like just being in the same ecosystem as 2 of the premier programs in the FCS has sort of pushed them forward?
Yeah. So I was at NDSU when South Dakota came, I guess, back to us. I don't even know what year that would have been. Probably 11 or something like that. So they in North Dakota were behind South Dakota State and North Dakota State. Not only with the transition to 1AA FCS, but then also the move into the Missouri Valley. And they were ahead of North Dakota. They got in again, whatever year that was. It was somewhere in that, I think 11 is what if I recall right. And they were behind in that stretch, and I think they're really fortunate to get Coach Nielsen to come in. And I think his championship background and mindset and commitment to that program, alongside, being right there in the same state as the Jackrabbits and, a state down from the Bison, I think is it's those types of things. Obviously they've chosen at the University of South Dakota to invest. I would guess, you look at the way the Dakota Dome looks now. I haven't been in there for a long time, but it looks a lot different than the last time I was in there. I know they built a basketball facility. I mean, they've just done things at that university to continue to move forward. And I'm sure in large part because their in-state counterparts were doing the same thing. And, they didn't want to stand by just watching all that happen. So credit to them, credit to them for not just being comfortable being second fiddle. And, they're in a place right now this year where they're, tri-champions of that league. And I'm sure if you'd asked a lot of people, even a few years back, they probably wouldn't have seen that coming.
And the other one, I know Slim asked you about Bobby Daly, but I wanted to ask about Sean Howe. Two questions. First of all, what have you thought of just sort of the relationship between Bobby and Sean and sort of their collaboration on that defensive side?
Well, that's been really important. And, they've worked with me for all 4 seasons. They were, I think both guys that contributed significantly our first 3 years, whether Freddie was coordinator or Willie Mack. And, ultimately in moving forward, when hiring from within, only one guy was going to call the plays and made the decision to go with Bobby. And I think there was an understanding that those two had to continue to, more so than ever, work together in leading the charge and what we were doing through the course of the off season, during the course of any game week, and then how we function on game day. So I appreciate them both for understanding how I set the roles, I guess, and then putting their egos aside and working together so that our defense could take it to another level. Without their willingness to I guess follow my lead and how I sorted it out, we wouldn't be in the position we were. And I said it back when we made the decision to name Sean the co-defense coordinator. That's a real title in my mind, especially when we're talking about how we operate outside of game day. And I think he's taken to that, and Bobby's allowed for those, those opportunities for Sean as well. So pleased with how it's worked out, and just fortunate to have had both those guys on staff now for the 4 years I've been here.
And you'd mentioned Bobby's love of the program and his legacy within it. Sean comes from sort of an outside lens, right? And having worked at big time places and worked with, guys like Monty Kiffin. So how much do you think that sort of accentuates each other, with Bobby being the sort of in-house homegrown guy and Sean having been at some of the best programs in the country?
Yeah, I think, sometimes with like Sean's experience, I think your access to, a different point of view, different people in the business, I think has been there. I think Sean's experience within this relative system is deeper than Bobby's. So, I think being able to call back on the way they did things here, the way they did things there. Sean worked with Scotty Hazelton, who I go way back with, and getting Scotty, involved, I guess, with even a relationship with Bobby this past off season was big. But then, I think it's just that. I think trying to always find the best way to do things is what both of their experiences, I think, I guess, bring to the table. And again, how well they work together is a credit to both them as individuals. And I think at the same time, yeah, Bobby's got deep ties here. He's, as deep as anybody. But at the same time, Sean, I think I feel the same way for him, meaning this isn't just a flash in the pan in his career. I think he's really enjoyed this opportunity to be here. He'd moved around quite a bit, so I don't know it for a fact, but I would guess this is his longest stint at a place. And I think he takes a great amount of pride in our success here at Montana State. He's really poured into our players in this time that he's been here. And that's what you really want when guys are here as coaches, wherever they come from, that this is where they're at. And they're entirely invested in the opportunity to lead our players and to give them the best chance to have a meaningful experience. in different ways, I think they've both done that while they've been here.
And last thing for me, the defensive line, just the level they're playing at right now and their ability to sort of overcome the Blake Schmidt injury and just how many guys have been able to be game ready. How much of a testament is that to just Coach Howe?
Yeah, it's a lot of credit goes to him and certainly Coach Bapp as well. And I think since I've been here, the charge has been we can't just go out there with 4 guys. We've got to develop depth, and I do think this is the deepest group that we've had, both in talent but then experience as well. And guys, truly understanding their roles, and if it means they're a single digit type of guy plays per game, those single digit plays are gonna be impactful. Or the guy that's gonna play 40 plus plays, he's gonna figure out how to do that. I think our creativity within that group has stretched the group. Guys like Kenny and Brody and even Dom Solano being able to go inside and do some things. The emergence of Paul Brott, Sean's seen that through from his redshirt year, where Paul came in as a pretty raw, hardworking, talented guy, but become, I think, a real force. So, I think our development there has been on par with what we'd hoped it would be. And, just like on the offensive side, our success, begins with that group and the discipline they play with, the effort they play with. And, right now I think we're playing at a pretty high clip.
Anything else in the room?
Somebody asked me about Drew Polidor. Is there anything injury-wise with him? Or?
I think he, like, at tail end of the game, I think it was a long game for him. So okay. He was after practicing today, I guess. That's typical game stuff.
All right. Thank you.
Cash One Pawn has the most extensive inventory of any pawn shop in Western Montana. Whether you're in the market for firearms, power tools, bows, video game consoles, or sunglasses, Cash One Pawn has the best deals around. And now Cash One Pawn gives you the ability to shop online from anywhere. Make CashOnePawn.com part of your shopping habits. Also make sure to download the Cash One Pawn app. Cash One Pawn, Missoula's premier pawn shop located on Roller Coaster Road on the way to the Y.